Hi everyone, I'm Law of the West, and in this video I'm going to be going over the differences between the Drake Corsair and the RSI Constellation. Although this ship is billed as being a direct competitor to the Aquila, I'm going to be mainly referring to the Constellation lineup in general when comparing the two ships. And also as a disclaimer, I'm going to be focusing on the Corsair as I go over a number of points, and then making comparisons as to how it matches up to the Connies in each of these various aspects. So why would you pick a Corsair over a Constellation? After all, they both fulfill the same role. They're each run by a crew of 4. They're both explorers, they both have the same range and use a similar components loadout, and they also can each carry cargo and a vehicle. It comes down to these main issues. Do you prefer the RSI style, and having a more durable hull as well as having a hell of a lot more missiles? Or are you someone who prefers a more rugged design, and likes a ship that sacrifices durability for an increased level of firepower? One issue to take into account when it comes to comparing these two ships is looking into what kinds of additional craft that each one can carry. The Drake has the capacity to store an Ursa-sized rover in the cargo bay, but it hasn't been confirmed as to whether or not it's going to come with a rover. Most likely it won't, but this is subject to change. It also doesn't come with a snub fighter like the Merlin, and it doesn't have any way for a small vehicle to dock with it externally like you'd find in most of the ships in the Connie lineup. Let's move on and compare the aesthetics of each ship. Drake ships are a lot more stripped down than an Aegis or an RSI ship. The Corsair borrows heavily from the Caterpillar as far as its internal assets go, so that should give you a good idea what the inside of the Corsair is going to look like. It's been described by the designers as being more akin to a Russian military craft that has an almost skeletal appearance to it. The upside to this design is that everything inside of it that can break is going to be readily accessible and easy to fix or replace. While the RSI design has more of a refined civilian look to it that's had its edges slightly smoothed off. Origin is going to be at the top end when it comes to comfort and design, with RSI being a close second. While Drake? Well, Drake is going to be found at the bottom of the scale. Not surprisingly enough though, that's part of the Drake charm. It's not poorly designed, it's just designed with no frills and has a rough, unfinished look to it. And that's the really appealing part to a good amount of people. From aesthetics, let's move on to comparing the two ships in terms of their performance. Oddly enough, the first thing I'm going to be looking at deals with both of these issues, and that's the controversial asymmetrical design of one of its wings. This unique configuration is only going to have a slight impact on its atmospheric flight capabilities. The difference in its wings isn't wild enough to create a major impact on its performance. This is mainly because all of its thrusters are symmetrically configured along the hull, and the main engines will be able to power through any kind of turbulence that may try to throw it off. The Connie has a set of VTOL thrusters located in the front portion of the ship, but it has no real wings to speak of that it can use to generate lift with, and it has a very non-aerodynamic looking cross-section. So no matter how good or bad the Connie ends up performing while within an atmosphere, the Corsair is going to have an easier time maneuvering while under the same circumstances. The scanning suite that the Corsair comes with, functionality-wise, is going to be a better class of component than you'd find in any of your standard ships. While the Aquila replaces the top turret with a dedicated scanner, that's going to be manually operated by a player, so it's going to be a lot more intricate and a lot more powerful than the Corsairs. Although I don't have any specific stats on the Corsair's exact SCM or afterburner speed, it's described as being comparable to that of the Connie. Its length and beam is fairly close in proportion to the Connie's as well, so its ability to maneuver in space is most likely also going to track very closely to it. When it comes to components, both ships are still very similar. They're both outfitted with the same number of medium-sized components, with the exception being that the Corsair has an extra medium-sized quantum tank and an additional small computer. And when it comes to cargo space, the Corsair can carry a max of 72 SCUs worth of cargo, while the standard Connie can carry 96. These two numbers aren't too far off from one another considering that the Corsair isn't a dedicated cargo hauler. A major difference between the two ships can be seen in their weapons loadout. The Corsair has two manned turrets on one side and a remote turret located at the back of the ship. The side turrets are a bit more recessed in for protection, so they can't act as forward or rear-facing weapons. They're going to be strictly used for protecting the ship's flanks. The pilot has control of 4 size 5 weapon hardpoints that are located just below the cockpit, and 2 more additional size 4 weapon hardpoints that are located on the wings. That's a lot of forward-facing firepower for the pilot to have control of at one time. The Connie also has 4 size 5 weapon hardpoints that are slave to the pilot, but lacks the additional pair of size 4 weapon hardpoints on the wings. The Andromeda has 2 manned turrets located on the top and bottom of the ship, which provides better overall coverage, but the bottom turret has poor visibility, and the Aquila and the Taurus both replace one of their turrets for additional functions, which creates a blind spot on the part of the ship that the turret's missing on. The Corsair has 4 size 4 missile racks, but unlike with the Connie, you can switch the racks to reconfigure the missiles to any payload that fits the rack's size configuration. You can't do that with the Connie, since most of its missiles are stored internally, but still, what the Connie lacks in configuration abilities, it more than makes up for a number of missiles. The Andromeda has 24 size 2 missiles and 28 size 1s. While the Aquila may not be as much of a missile boat, but it still holds 24 size 2s in it. So when it comes to firepower, you can sum up the Corsair by saying that it has less missiles, but more turrets, while the Connie has less turrets, but more missiles. It should also be noted that the Corsair may have a hefty offensive footprint, but like with other Drake ships, it isn't going to be as durable as its competitors. That's going to be the trade-off that you get for all of its extra armaments, the fact that it exchanges firepower for durability. Onboard amenities for the Corsair includes individual living quarters for all the crew, a separate bunk for the captain, that's located adjacent to the flight deck, a galley/relaxation area, space for storing spare supplies in the cargo hold, and the famous CIG bathroom shower combo, because you can only venture so far out into the cosmos without a toilet. It's not going to be as limited in its exploration capabilities as a ship like the Terrapin would be, but it isn't going to be as long range as the Carrack. You're also not going to be finding any pool tables or ice hockey machines here. After all, it is a Drake ship. There is a secondary entrance into the ship that's a lot like the one you'd find in the Connie, which is a standard vertical lift that's located in between the 2 turrets. And it's also fully enclosed so that you don't end up venting your entire ship every time you use it. Being a Drake ship, it's also going to have an additional storage room that's fairly well hidden that you can use to store your stash in, and a vent system that's going to be a lot like the one you'd find in the Mercury. All the components for the Corsair are located in a central area that's very well protected and easy to get to. Its internal design is going to be very efficient when it comes to managing the ship during a crisis situation. Everything is going to be right where you need it and easy to get at. There are no docking collars in the Corsair, unlike the 3 docking collars that are found on the Connie. And also, unlike with the Connie, the Corsair's beds do not double as escape pods. Remember, once again, this is a Drake ship that we're talking about, so there's going to be no escape pods or ejection systems for you to fall back on in case of an emergency. The seats in the flight deck of the Corsair are a completely new design, and aren't just reused assets that were lifted from the Cutlass. The co-pilot seat actually descends and moves forward underneath the pilot seat, and the pilot seat is going to ascend up into the canopy to give the pilot a better view. It's going to be similar in nature to the Cutlass's flight deck, but it's going to be a lot more intricate in its execution. And on a final note, the Corsair Warbond price is $195 and $215 is a standalone price, while the Andromeda is $225, and the Aquila is now priced at $310. So despite how you feel about the Drake as opposed to the Connie, you could always buy the Corsair with LTI now and upgrade it to any of the Connies later on if you decided to change your mind. So to summarize, the Corsair has more turrets, better pilot visibility for flying and landing, a well thought out functional interior space design, vents and secret stash areas, plenty of amenities to take care of your basic needs, has a faster method for vehicle deployment, and comes at a cheaper price than its competitors. But it looks like it isn't going to be bundled with a vehicle. It has a weaker, more vulnerable hull, comes with less missiles, and has no escape pods. While the Aquila comes with a vehicle and a snub fighter, has a sleeker looking interior space, has a larger cargo bay, is armed with a buttload more missiles, and comes with survival pods for all the crewmen. But it's more expensive, and it's been criticized for not utilizing its interior space as well as it could. The lower turret on the Andromeda has poor visibility, while the Aquila has one gun turret instead of the Corsair's 3. And if you want a Connie with LTI, you're going to need to use an LTI token, or look for a package deal that bundles it with an LTI option. In Star Citizen, when it comes to any ships that are in direct competition with one another, you're never going to find one to be inherently better than the other. Instead, each one of them will tend to excel in a certain way, and it's up to the player to decide on which one is going to best fit their individual taste and playstyle. It's going to be no different when it comes to a choice between the Aquila and the Corsair. When trying to pick one over the other, the best I can do is try to give you as many facts as I can, and then let you decide in the end which one is going to be the best fit for you. I've been your host, Law of the West. Thanks for watching, and take care.